All right, well, welcome to the Village of Jackson Candidate Forum. Tonight's event is sponsored by the Greater Jackson Business Alliance and the Mid-Moraine Municipal Association. My name is Scott Middlestead. I'm the Executive Director of Mid-Moraine, and also with us tonight is Debbie Zeinhardt, the President of the Business Alliance. I think she's right over there. Okay. I'd like to thank our video team from Kettle Moraine Lutheran High School for recording tonight's program, which will soon be available streaming on YouTube. I think we have the channel set up, and as soon as we get everything put together, we'll advertise that. Tonight's moderator is Dan Anhalt, owner of Kennis Enterprises. Dan has many years of experience in conducting candidate forums, such as one that we're presenting tonight, and it's always a pleasure to have him as our guest. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dan, and you can take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for those attending in person and those who are going to be watching and listening to this later from a recording standpoint. Most importantly, thank you to our candidates. It takes a lot to run for office, and we certainly appreciate people's commitment to that. So thank you very much, and thank you for agreeing to be at this forum this evening. The questions that will be asked this evening are the result of people from the community submitting questions over the last about 3 weeks. And many of the questions that come in resemble each other. So what we do is we take them and try to put them into one question that will gather the information. There are so many questions that are submitted, though, that I'll guarantee we won't get to all of them tonight. But we'll make sure we touch on questions that touch on as many of the subject areas as people have raised. We will not be taking questions from the audience tonight. That's why we have them submitted in advance. And it is a candidate forum. It's not a debate. So what you won't hear is what you see on TV sometimes, the point-counterpoint kind of thing. This is set up so that each candidate will answer a question, and they will each answer it in the way that they feel about it, what their opinion is, what their position is on it. They have not been given the questions ahead of time, so they'll be thinking about that as we go through. Candidates, what I'll do is alternate. So for example, when we're doing opening remarks, we'll start here with Deborah, and we'll move down. And then the first question, Deborah, you'll be the first one to answer it, and we'll go down. And then Tim, you'll on the second question, you'll be the first one to answer it. And we'll keep staggering as we go along. And then that way the first person in the row doesn't always have to come up with their answers on a split second, okay? Any questions from the audience before we get started here this evening? All right. Well, what we'll do then first is we're going to start with the opening remarks, and each of you get 2 minutes for your opening remarks. You'll also get 2 minutes for your closing remarks. So again, we're going to start with you, and then we're going to go all the way down, and then we'll come back and we'll start with the very first question, okay? We have a timer up front. Scott will do that. If I can ask that on the 1 minute questions, you give them a 15-minute note or 15-second notice. There you go, 15-second sign, nice. And then on the 2 minutes, if you have a 30-second, that's awesome. Thank you. All right, can I turn it over to you for your opening comments? And the microphone's right over here.
Hello. Okay, there we go. My name is Debbie Kurtz, and I've been a village resident since 1999, so that's almost 26 years ago. My husband and I moved here from Glendale, which is a suburb of Milwaukee, and we moved here because we wanted that rural feel. We moved here, when we moved here, the population in Jackson was approximately 5,000 plus, and from my understanding and my research, as of now, it's a little over 8,000. Could be more, could be a little less, I'm not sure. So it seems to be growing by leaps and bounds, and I know there's lots of changes going on, and that's wonderful. And then 2016 to 2020, I was an elected village trustee and was on the Budget and Finance Committee and worked hard to maintain transparency, and was never afraid to call it others for either unacceptable things that I felt or unnecessary spending. So one of the reasons I wanted to run again is because I had attended a meeting, hadn't had to feel like I had to go to every meeting because I trust the people that are elected. And I was at a village board meeting where we spent $1.5 million in 15 minutes while I was there, and there were no discussions, there were no nothing, and I was a little concerned about the spending. So I want to be able to live here and also afford it. I have concerns about future, the rise in taxes, utilities, and future expenditures, and the only way for me to know exactly what's going on is to get involved and be part of this. So I thank you for allowing me to come here and talk to you tonight.
Debbie, thank you. Tim Engelhardt, you're up next.
Well, as I said, my name is Tim Engelhardt. I've lived in the village for almost 5 years now, and lived in the town of Jackson for 15 years prior to that. We were next into the village, as does happen as the village expands. One of the things that one of the reasons I'm on the board is to keep the taxes as low as possible. The village has had a history of having rather high mill rates, and if you all looked at your tax bills the last time, the mill rate went down, but the value of your house went way up. So basically, you didn't get a tax reduction, you got a tax increase is what it amounted to. The valuations we can't do much about. The mill rates we can. As Debbie said, sometimes we both spend $1.5 million with one vote, but that's because the committees have gone through all the bids and everything else before that. So there might have been 4 or 5 bids that were evaluated by the committee, like the Board of Public Works, which I'm on, and then we send it to the Budget and Finance, and they then, if the money's there, then they say go ahead and recommend to the village to buy it, which we do. But we also argue about stuff. I, for one, argued I did not want to spend $6 million expanding a facility that was already here and working when we could have spent $1 million to repair it and make it continue to work as it was. So we do argue about expenses, and that's one of my key areas. My background is I've owned my own business, been a successful salesman and manager for a number of years. At my church, I was on the board of directors, vice president of the church, board of elders director. I'm still working. I am 75, but I'm cognizant more than some of the most recent that you've had. That it? Okay.
Tim, thank you very much. Jeff Mitchell is up next. Jeff, your opening comments.
As they said, my name is Jeff Mitchell. I've been living in the village of Jackson for since 2017. Our daughters, we lived in Menominee Falls, and I got to see how Menominee Falls grew exponentially, very quickly. And it doesn't give you that small town feel, especially, I mean, Menominee Falls is, a pretty large place, but moving here, we moved because we wanted to be closer to Kettle, where both my daughters went. And then 3 years ago, I started working on the board. I started working. I don't know if that's a word. Yeah, okay. We volunteered on the Board of Public Works with Tim and with Randy. And I have to agree with what Tim said. It's not, by the time it gets to the Board of Public Works or the Board of Trustees, it's not something that is, yes, there is a path, there is a process. From my perspective, I think I kind of agree with Debbie as well. You have to get involved. You want to know what's going on. You have to get involved, whether that's coming to a meeting or signing up and be part of the Public Works Department, the board. I kind of think that you want to know things that are happening. You have to kind of get in and get your feet wet and figure out what's going on. I like work. I like living here. I think the growth is great. I also think that if you don't have growth, it gets stagnant, and stagnancy isn't good.
Jeff, thank you very much. Next up, Brian Emmerich.
We good? Okay. Hey, my name is Brian Emmerich. I've been almost a 25-year resident of the Village of Jackson. I've been on the village board since 2010. I've been on the Budget and Finance Committee, the Public Works Committee, and I'm currently on the Personnel Committee and the Planning Commission. I am a retired police officer, canine handler. I am now on a fixed income myself the last 2 years, and I'm working part-time as well. So I know what money means to people, especially people who are retired on a fixed income. I believe on the board here, or people are up here today, I'm the only person who's actually worked in municipal government, which has helped me lead Jackson with my experience working for municipalities, several that I worked for over my career. I believe most people in the village and most people living in different areas want to live their lives. When they call 911, they want the police to show up, they want the fire department, the rescue squad to show up, and they pay their taxes and they want their services provided to them. Our job is to facilitate that and use their tax money wisely. I believe we are doing so at a good portion of that. As of this year, we are actually adding a police officer and adding a firefighter paramedic. And I looked at my tax bill this year, my taxes went up around $50 on the village's side. A lot of the other stuff was for the school because of the referendum that went up. But I think we're doing good for the residents of this village. My personal preferences or feeling is our employees, we need to start looking out for our employees because people who have skills out there are not available. We're looking right now for a DPW director, and we're in our third process now to try to find someone qualified, thanks, to run that position over there, and that is a very important position for the village. So my main focus of the next couple of years is going to be for our employees to make sure our services are provided to our residents what they deserve to have. Thank you.
Brian, thank you very much. Next up, Randy Matter. Randy, your opening comments.
Yeah, good evening. Randy Matter. I've been a resident of either the village or the town of Jackson for probably 27 years. Both my wife and I are graduates of Kettle Moraine Lutheran. All 4 of my kids went through Kettle Moraine Lutheran, and we are proud to support the school even today. When the subdivision became part of the village, it was one of my feelings that as civic duty, I wanted to understand better the finances of the village, and the only way to do that is to roll up your sleeves and get involved. I've been involved in many different positions at my church. I've been on the Greater Jackson Business Alliance board, the successor to the Jackson Area Business Association. So I like to understand what's happening, and the only way that I can do that is get involved. I'm a chief financial officer. I've been in various financial positions my whole life, probably 40-some years. That's not how old I am, that's just how long I've been a professional. So I also have been on the village board for 4 years now. This will be my 3rd term. I serve on the Public Works Committee as well as the Budget and Finance Committee. It's important for village board people and government people to be big picture thinkers. We don't do all the nitty-gritty work. We have great staff in the village that does that detail work, and they bring their recommendations forward for us to be able to consider. But we have to be big picture thinkers on behalf of the village residents and think of whether this makes sense to do or not to. And so that's one of the things that I think I bring to the table for the village, and monitor those kinds of things at the higher level. So I appreciate you all being here tonight, and hope you get something out of it.
Randy, thank you for your opening comments. John Schlenz.
Hi, my name is John Schlenz. I've been a resident of Jackson now for about 7 years. Some background information: I'm a retired podiatrist. I spent half my career working in my private practice and half the career working for Aurora Healthcare. So I know what it's like to be an employee and an employer. I have a good understanding of how to run a financially and fiscally sound budget, and I'm good at money management. I am conservative by nature. I know it's not a partisan position, but I do carry my core conservative principles with me. I'm the board president of my condo association, Rivers Bluff. It's an association that consists of 40 units, and I've successfully led it through the past couple of years through some trying times concerning roofs and sidings and freak hailstorms. However, we still are around and we're financially sound. So if I'm elected, the goal is simply to help advance the community of Jackson. I feel that I have a good amount of common sense, fiscal responsibility, and prudence to call upon to address any issue. Given all of this, I think I can make a positive addition to the Board of Jackson Trustees, and I hope you'd consider giving me your vote.
John, thank you very much for your comments. A reminder to the audience and to the candidates as we begin the questions now this evening. We'll begin with Debbie, and then the second question, Tim, you'll be the first one to answer it, and so forth as we work through the questions themselves. So, and you may find at times, for example, the first question is going to ask you to expand a little bit on something a couple of people touched on, but feel free to expand beyond. This first question is going to be a 1-minute question, and it's other than as an elected official or a candidate, how have you been involved in this community, this particular community?
Well, for a while I haven't been because I've been taking care of my in-laws who are now deceased. So I have been working and I haven't had a chance, well, I haven't had a lot of time to be involved in the village. Now that I'm working closer to retirement age, not that I'm going to retire, I find that I have more time to be able to be more hands-on and get involved. So that's really all I got for that.
Thank you, Debbie. Quick fact, how many people in the United States turn 65 on average on a daily basis? So it's not every day there's this many. But if you took everybody who turned 65 in 2025 and divided it by 365, how many people would that be? We have, on average, 10,000 people a day in this country turning 65. Doesn't mean they're retiring, but traditional retirement age. So you will see questions that have come in that address those kinds of futures. So if you see those things, it's a true demographic change that's never occurred like that in this country. So Tim, you are up.
The most involvement I have in the village is being on the board and being a resident. I've got 2 grandchildren that, one grandchild that attends Living Word High School. It'll be 2 next year that'll be attending Living Word. As far as my involvement in the community, for the most part, it's been through my church, which is in Menominee Falls. And as far as out here, I just try to be a good neighbor. I think most of the people in the subdivision accept me, as far as being acceptable anyway. So that's my involvement. I just try to be a good citizen.
Thank you, Tim. Jeff, you're up.
I said it before that I started with the Board of Public Works in 2023, just adding semi-active in Kettle. My daughter is a senior this year, so this will be the weird empty nest feeling. And those of you who are empty nesters, you got notes you want to share, please do. Because I'm going to have to learn how to be, well, let me rephrase that. I'm going to have to learn, my wife is going to have to learn how to live with me all over again. So I'm not sure how that's going to work, but that's about it. The public works, and that I'm learning a lot on that. That's a very cool thing to be a part of. So,
Jeff, thank you. My wife and my joke was that we actually started dating again. We just had to make sure it was with each other, not yet. Yeah.
Other than being on the board since 2010 and all the committees I've been on, one of my proudest things to do to the village is when I did have my police canine, I did assist the Jackson Police Department numerous times in getting heroin and other drugs off the streets in this city, or this village, I'm sorry. And that was, to me, that was a good feeling. And knowing I live here and they're calling me, I go from home and I'm helping to keep this community safe. That was my whole life, and that when I lived, you know, I did that my whole life. I lived for that. The other things I've done, I've donated money to the Park and Recs Department before for the disc golf course. I've donated money to the Boy Scouts to help them with things at this building here over the years and help with different things of that nature as well. I've also given back my pay from the village board back to the police and fire department to assist them in buying items that they couldn't afford. Thank you.
Brian, thanks much for your thoughts. Randy, you have the next question, and just a reminder for the last two folks, it's other than as an elected official or candidate, how have you been involved in the community? Randy?
So I would say I'm very active in my church in various different positions. I used to serve as a soccer coach in the Germantown district. In the Jackson area, I served on the Jackson Area Business Association or Greater Jackson Business Alliance Board. As a result of that service, I was very involved in Action in Jackson. We spent a lot of time in the food stand. We also ran food drives around the village on behalf of the association, on the alliance. We did a number of things. The Business Alliance also helped support the pickleball courts, and we had the tables sponsored the tables outside there. And those are some things that I did around the Jackson area and that helped support the community.
Thank you, Randy. John Schlenz.
Well, almost from the time we got here, my wife and I have been involved in poll working and election inspectors. We won't be in this election because they told us that wouldn't be appropriate. So the other thing that's taking up most of my time is the condo board presidency. While I was working, my wife was elected as vice president, and she would tell me, when you retire, you're going to be on there. And she was right. She said it wasn't going to be a big deal, but it did turn out to be, thanks to those hailstorms. So that's pretty much what's been taking up our time.
Thank you, John. The next question is up to a 2-minute question, and Mr. Engelhardt will begin with you. The second question is, what do you see as the 2 or 3 main priorities facing the village in the next 5 years? Think 5-year cycle, and think 2 or 3 of the main priorities. Tim, if I could ask you to begin that topic.
Well, first off, we've got major expansion of the sewer and water facilities that are required by the state to get done, and it's a lot of money. And what we're doing at this point is the first stage is already under construction and proceeding as it's supposed to. The second stage will be going, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was probably another $20 million that we got to spend on the next stage going forward. It's a lot of money. Now, the sewer and water district pays for these things primarily through the charges that you get charged for your sewer and water bill at home. That's where the money comes from, by and large. Sometimes you get grants, but for the most part, you're paying it through the facilities itself. And that's one of the areas that are going to continue to go up in price for us as time goes on, and there's no way to avoid it. That's an issue. And we got to keep those things in mind when we're deciding what else to spend, because everything impacts you in the village, whether it's your sewer and water bill or your property tax bill or whatever the case would be. So that's one of the biggest things. The other thing is we are buying some additional equipment. We just approved a brand new fire engine purchase and also a brand new patrol truck within the last 12 months. The other issues that I think have to be brought forward are the fact that we have to plan as we go forward in the future, what do we want for expansion in the village and what don't we want. Everybody likes a small town feel, and yes, expansion does lower your property tax bill, but expansion also takes away some of the small town feel. And I think that's one of the issues that we have to do at this point.
Mr. Engelhardt, thank you very much. Next up, Mr. Mitchell.
How do you follow that?
Well, first of all, I think turn it off.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good. I think a big priority is, obviously keeping taxes low. But again, how do you do that? Is that an expansion thing? Is that a retraction thing? Do you balance that by putting in more housing? Do you balance that by bringing in more industrial? That's a difficult question to kind of foresee. I think the other thing is we're constantly focused on the roads. I think Highway 60 project was very smooth and very quickly done. I think I'd have to say that the other piece that I would focus on would be Parks and Rec. I think we have two good parks, Jackson Park and, but I think the ideas that they have established over on Highway P and with Hasmern Lake, I think that is actually a really good idea, and I think that can bring a bigger interest for people to. Menominee Falls does it. I'm going to ramble. Menominee Falls does it where they have their music in the park piece. So bringing that in and having that, I think that brings people. It doesn't have to bring people from the community, but it can bring food trucks. I mean, it can expand. It explodes. But it has to start somewhere, and I think that's a good chunk of where it possibly happens.
Mr. Mitchell, thank you very much. Next up, Mr. Emmerich, and I'll repeat the question for the final four candidates here who will be addressing it. But it is, when you look at the main priorities facing the village, what are the 2 or 3 that should be focused on the most in the next 5 years? Brian?
As I said before, my main priority is our staffing in the village, making sure we have qualified persons working in all our departments in the village. As I said before, we're on our third group of candidates to look for someone for our DPW director, and that's a very important position, which he runs the DPW facility and our water and sewer utilities as well. We're going to be hiring a police officer, an extra police officer this summer, and a firefighter paramedic this summer. And I think we have to look at our wages, our wage scales, and other alternative benefits to get qualified people. We're fighting with everybody else for these same people. No one else new is coming into the fields anymore, and our citizens deserve a certain level of service, and we need to provide that as a village board. That's my main focus for the next couple of years, is making sure we have the right people in those positions and making sure the people we have, we keep them, and we pay and give them the right benefits to make sure they don't want to leave. The other thing is the growth in the village. I know people have been talking about that up here since we got here today. You got to have some growth. You got to have a mixture of growth, whether it's mixed housing, business park activity, stuff like that. I talked to the business park developer about a month and a half ago, and he's looking for other land here to add on to the business park or have another business park. That stuff is good for the village. It doesn't put any needs on our services. It doesn't add anything to our schools. That's tax money brought in. It creates jobs for the village for people, and it's overall good for the village. I think we need to keep looking at those as well to help keep our costs down. Like I said, a lot of people in the village who are on fixed incomes, myself now included, since I retired about 2 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. Randy Matter, up next.
One of the detriments of having 4 people in front of you that are knowledgeable about activities in the village is they take all of your fire out. I think I would echo a number of things that were already said. The village board about 2 years ago established a financial management plan, and as a result, we are able to look out 15 years and take a look at what kinds of long-term projects we have to deal with. Just in the immediate next 3 to 5 years, the roads are going to get a lot of focus for us. Another area that is a part of the overall project is going to be the dog park that we've been talking about. Maybe you've heard about that. Those are some things that we just last night just developed some bond issue for being able to address those kinds of things. Hickory Lane, for example, is going to take probably about $2 million to just plain old resurface and redo it. It takes a lot of money to redo that road. So that will be one of the things. I agree with Brian in terms of the staff. We are losing a couple of very important members of our staff that are retiring within the next month or so, and the legacy information that they take with them out of the village will be hard to replace. I also think that that Jackson Park has a lot of benefit for us. There's a lot of opportunity there. We redid the tennis courts and the pickleball, and I think there's a lot more development that can be there. I also agree that parks are important, and I would really like to see Hasmer Lake being more developed. We have this resource of water in the village, and that's not what a lot of places can say, and we have a chance to develop that area into a very nice park for our community and for other people who come here. Thank you.
Mr. Matter, thank you much. Mr. Schlens?
Well, I agree. The replacing of the Department of Public Works Director and the Parks and Recreation Director, whose retirement I saw just a couple nights ago, that's going to be very important. I was always impressed, especially with the Department of Public Works Director when I went to these meetings over the past few months, how knowledgeable he was. And I didn't know this question was going to be here, but I did have a list of things that I've learned a lot on over the past few months going to the meetings. You know, they included the water plant. I was astounded by the amount of money we have to spend in order to keep Wisconsin happy, but it has to be done. I was educated on water towers. I had no idea how needy they were, you know, both inside and out. The dog park is something that's going to be important, and of course the new fire truck. And again, I was impressed by the thought that went into the fire truck, how it was priced out, how it was determined by a committee from the fire department, what was core values, what was absolutely needed on it, what was nice to have, and what were options. You know, so all of that was on my list.
Thank you very much. Ms. Kurtz, you'll wrap up this question for us, and then Mr. Mitchell, you'll be answering the question first for question number 3. Debbie?
As I said before, I haven't been involved in a lot of things for a long time, but I have done some research, and I am very concerned. I'm still very concerned about the spending. I know that there are things that have to be done. I know there's a certain amount of monies that have to be set aside for certain things, but I also know that there are things that can be done to curb the spending. When I heard the amount of money, and I want you to know, I'm all for community center. I think community centers are great. I am still unsure and why we had to spend $6 million or why we're spending $6 million. I don't know what the revenue is from this place. I don't know what the expenses are. Hopefully I can find some more of that out, but I also know that the bigger you get, the more money you spend. And I really think we've got to think about growth, slowing the growth down just a little bit, step back and take a breath. And I also would like to see something done with this Main Street. I mean, when you've got garbage on the streets, you've got dishwashers sitting out there, you've got, I mean, who's supposed to take care of that? I just don't understand some of the things that go on here. I would like to see people in administration have to be a village resident, because I believe that when you are vested, living here, paying taxes, you seem to spend less money. So the wastewater treatment plant, I mean, that's just has to be done. You know, I understand that, but there are ways that we can curb the spending in this village.
Debbie, thank you very much. Mr. Mitchell, you're next, and this question is a 1-minute response time. What can be done to help lower the area housing costs to enable workforce to afford to live within the village, in addition to the projects that have already been begun? Would you like a repeat?
No, I'm going to answer that very simply. I got a college education. I got a 2-year degree. I'm not qualified to answer that question. Repeat the question, sorry.
I'd be happy to repeat the question. What can be done to help lower area housing costs so that Jackson-based workforce can better afford to live in the village?
Didn't get any easier after I repeated it.
If you say it often enough, it sounds easier.
Yeah. All right, I guess I have a question then. Isn't the housing that's behind the communities or the police department, isn't that part of that? I mean, isn't that that was supposed to be I don't want to say affordable housing because that's wrong. Yeah, next generation. I don't know how to answer that question. That's it. Brian, nope. Nope. Nope.
That's okay. Mr. Emmerich, you're up next.
Can you want to repeat it one more time?
Be happy to. What can be done to help lower area housing costs so that the Jackson workforce can better afford to live in the village?
Now, the market drives the housing costs, and that's a lot out of the village's hands, what the market is for housing. I think you said not to bring up what we're doing already, but the next generation housing is a part of what can help. I don't know if people could do community service to get, if there was like the county had money again and stuff like that they could give people a break on if they worked in the community to lower some costs, or the village could work with developers or bring developers in that had more of these type of houses that, I'm not going to say they're low-income housing, because they're not, because they're $300-some thousand. I mean, but right now in the market, is a lower price point compared to what we're seeing elsewhere. That's actually a hard, that's kind of out of the board's hands. I'm going to guess, if someone's got a bright answer up here at, Elon Musk in it or something, because there's, that's a lot of thought you have to put into that. I don't know if you could work with the banks maybe too to see about interest rates and that, locally, if they would, jump on board to help people too with that, if they, work in a village or stay here in that too. So.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Matter.
I'll take all of the ideas that came from the people in front of me here and combine them all together, right? I think one of the things that we as the board pitched very hard was the next generation housing project, and that project behind the administration offices and the fire department, intentionally building smaller homes that are more affordable is a pretty big key. We can't continue to build $500,000 to $600,000 homes and expect people who are younger to come in and buy those homes right off the bat. So somehow it has to be intentionalized. And in order to do that, we have had to reduce regulation. We've had to kind of streamline the process for getting the building going, finding who is interested in building at the right price point for people moving in to the village, attracting new and younger talent to the village. Will really help keep those housing prices down, because it forces the market to have smaller or lower pricing in the housing, because people who are just getting into the housing market can't afford $500,000-$600,000 houses like you might find. So I think another thing that we could do is consider the impact fees that take place in regards to the home building. Everybody pays an impact fee no matter when you buy a house or when you build a building, construction, whatever. So that's something that we as the village can look at as well. The market doesn't allow us to control a lot of what happens in the market in the area, but I think attracting more businesses so that the population of people in the area is better for the businesses, which should help increase the population of homes, as well as make them more available for people who are interested in moving here.
Thank you, Randy. John?
Well, I would agree with everybody else so far. One thing I would add is keeping property taxes in check. And I know my property taxes and all of ours went up this year, and it was quite a jump, but it was all due to the Kettle Moraine School District. I was talking to a friend of mine in Franklin who has a condo, and I found out that his property taxes are about 1.75 times what mine are here. And I thought, whoa, that's pretty good. So I don't think a community really has control over actual housing costs, other than what Jackson has been doing already, building, like you said, building smaller houses. But the first thing I'd want to do is see, are our housing costs out of line compared to other communities around here, like Slinger or something like that. I don't know that our housing costs are all that much higher.
John, thank you much. Debbie, you're up next.
Like a lot of these people up here, that is really, really a tough question. As far as, I think you talked about the younger generation. I don't think we'll have to worry about that because they don't go to work for one thing, and they won't be able to afford it. So that's about all I got on that.
Tim, you'll be wrapping this question up for us, and then Brian, you'll be beginning the next question, okay? It's my present to you today.
Well, with regard to more affordable housing, actually, with the way Jackson has grown through the years, there's actually a stair step in Jackson for affordable housing, starting out, quite frankly, with the mobile home park. You've got plenty of rental facilities in the village as well, as far as 4-family and 2-family places to rent. And along with that, you have a number of homes that in the village that have been here for 30, 40 years that are entry level for people coming into the market for the house as well. We all went through it. I'm assuming everybody on board did, and most of you have. When you started out small, okay, and you grew from that point. Keeping property taxes down is obviously something we all want to do, whether you've got the starter home or whether you've got an expensive home. But the village actually is probably better laid out than many places are to live, with the fact that you've got a wide range of housing available for people to come into the village and get going. The new generation housing is a good deal. There again, you can probably get a little bit of a leg up there if you're getting close to buying that house anyway and getting a little bit better deal there, and so you get your equity built up a little quicker. But as far as affordable housing goes, the village, I think, is already going in the right direction just because of the way it grew through the years. And then, as Brian mentioned earlier, more industrial parks are bringing the commercial taxes into the tax base will help lower the overall property tax bill. And housing is a situation that's driven by the market, obviously. But I think, again, going back to basics, we're already laid out pretty well for getting the housing prices the best they can be at this point.
Tim, thank you much.
Didn't I start?
Pardon?
I started.
Yes,
didn't I? Yeah.
you did. So we're going to move on to the next, and that's going to be Brian.
Can I
You
go
looked
again?
really, you looked like you wanted a
Come on, I got
second shot.
that's
You grabbed that mic and you wanted a
That's
second
6
shot at
rolls.
it.
I did. I definitely, after that, I had nowhere to go but up.
There, no. So Brian, the next question, when submitted, and this is for all the candidates, it acknowledges that the school referendum is a school district project. But the question is circled around, how do you think the village can work in conjunction with the school district to make sure the new school meets the needs of the village? So yes, it's a school district project, and yes, it was a referendum through the school district, but then how would the village work with the school district to make sure that school meets the needs of the village?
Initially, the school bought the land back here. I believe it was 7 or 8 acres. You can correct me, Scott, it's somewhere around there, right? Yeah. And then when we bought the land that the new fire police department and village hall is on, we sold the old fire department and our DPW to the school district to add on to the school for safety for the kids and for the bus routes and playground and stuff. So it was kind of not like the mess we have over here now. Big safety issue over here, and like obviously landlocked. That was one of the things that the village can do and that we did do, work with them to get the land for them so it was safer for the school to be built and more land for them that they needed to build a bigger school. I believe that when the school does come with their plans, it's going to come in front of the village to begin with. I'm going to assume that everyone's going to have opportunity to look at the plans, and I would think you'd be able to make comments like any other thing that's tax money is used for. There should be a public input session, whether it's here in the village, which I hope we have many of them. This is a big updoing for the village. to make sure that is done, so people have a say in it. And also, when the plans are done, they have to come in front of the board, I believe, anyway, in front of the Plan Commission and other committees that we can look over and go over their plans, and if they have any comments from citizens that show up, they can also be addressed at that time, too, for the school, that needs at the time for that the people would want.
Brian, thank you much. Randy, you're up to bat on this question.
Yeah, I guess I'd have to echo what Brian just said. Largely, the village, in fact, I think I remember even initial conversations being had with our village staff about how the design will work. Obviously, we will have a major amount of input since it is on village land. I mean, it's on land within the village. So we will have design specifications that have to be met. We'll have input in terms of what it should look like, how it should be structured, where things should go, how access is in and out of the property, and where things are going to be placed on the property. We'll have a lot of that direction, of course, with help, with a lot of direction, obviously, from the school district, but we will have our say. The Planning Commission will have their say in safety issues and things like that, and then Village Board will have the same discussion. So we'll have an opportunity to put our imprimatur on the school as they're working through all of the district issues, but our Planning Commission will have an opportunity to put that input in, and then it will come, of course, again to the Village Board for approval. So that, I think, is it's going to largely be the school district that's going to make the decision as to where everything goes, but it's going to be quite a project, and it will be an interesting couple of years during the construction. So just drive down Jackson Drive every once in a while and watch it go up, and you'll probably be proud that it's going up in our village.
Randy, thanks much. Mr. Schlens.
I pass. I know nothing about building schools. This is something that I'd have to be involved in the details, kind of learning as you go. But I know, as a citizen of Jackson, I would trust the village board to handle this correctly, and I would have enough trust in them that they know what they're doing. But I don't know how to build a school or how to make sure that it meets all the needs, but I do know they will be met.
John, thanks. Debbie?
The school. You know, I'm going to pass on this one. I'm not even going to comment on it.
Tim, you're up. Happy to do so. With the recent passing of the school referendum and the new school slated to be built in the near future, it's a school district project, but how would the village work in conjunction with the school district to make sure the new school meets the needs of the village?
In reality, we don't have a lot of input into it as a village, other than construction of the building being legal. As far as the layout of the school, it was part of a larger package where they were working on a number of schools and reassigning what classes would go in what building and what area they go to. So that it's at the school district level in West Bend that's going to decide how the school is laid out and what it'll be used for, what size classes or what age classes and whatever go into the school. All the village can do to help move the project along properly is make sure traffic flows are good as far as egress and whatever into the school, which that would be the one thing we would have control over. Of course, the building codes have to be followed. I don't think there'd be any problem with that. I think I'd be more concerned with what are we going to do with the old school property to make it a benefit for the village rather than an old school building. So that's where I think the village we can do the most as a board for the village is turn it into an income-producing property on that corner rather than just an old empty school building. That's all I got.
Tim, thanks much. Jeff, you wrap up this question for us.
Man, these questions, I tell you. I think the fact that we have a village board and we have a representative from the village board, that is kind of where it starts. And then, as this building project is coming, if there are concerns, you bring them to that person, or you bring them to the board. And that's how things get kind of rolling. Where I work at Wisconsin Lutheran Seminary. We're in the early phases of adding 6 classrooms. So so it's a lot of input, it's a lot of faculty input, staff input. Where does, are we building classrooms? Are we building, are they going to be modern? How are they going to look? That's nitty gritty details, but it's I think the community having to get involved to figure out exactly what they want, and then representatives from the village passing that information on. Does it fall on deaf ears? Maybe, but I mean, you being a taxpayer in Washington County and in the West Bend School District, I would think that you should have some say in some way.
Thank you very much. Randy, you'll begin the next question for us. And this question wraps around the tax levy limits that have been placed by the state on municipalities and their impact. It's getting harder and harder for municipalities to make ends meet. I hear that when I'm at the Mid-Moraine meetings, municipalities all around this part of the state echo that. But what are your thoughts on specifically shared services or shared equipment with neighboring communities? So what are your thoughts on shared services or equipment with neighboring communities? And Randy, if you could start that off for us.
We are in some circles already doing shared services with the county. They have stepped up. We do different things with roads. They help do some grants for us to, for example, one of the things that we're using the money for is to help line the roads. Okay, sounds pretty non-sexy, right? But the reality is somebody's got to pay for that, and the roads have to be kept up to speed. So we are doing some shared services. I think there's more talk in terms of shared services that would be like, for example, dispatch services, other things that we might be able to work together with that are more efficient than individual groups doing everything by themselves. So in that regard, I applaud the county coming forward, and our village board chairman has been very instrumental in discussing those things. What opportunities do we have for sharing those services, equipment? I think we already, there are times where I've heard our Public Works director, he'll talk about, we have a truck down. We called Slinger. Are we able to help? Or are we able to help Slinger with help with one of our trucks? Or we already do that with fire and services and things like that. So you have to define kind of what shared services means to you, and how important it is to cut costs in order to be able to share those services, and where does the line get drawn so that we still have that community feel for ourselves without giving that up, but still being able to work together in saving efficiencies and things like that for working with the county. I think the county has been doing a great job, and the villages around us have also been working very well with us together, as have we been working very well with the villages around to help share those resources that we all have.
Randy, thanks. John Schlenz, you're up.
I love shared services. When the village president saw I was running, he sent me an email and said, let's meet, and if you have any questions, which was pretty impressive all by itself. He told me then that, I believe our fire department is sharing calls around the area, and that helps with income for the fire department. Almost always, I think shared services make sense, and if they don't, well, then of course you don't do it. But I love the idea of shared services because it makes everything so much more efficient.
Thank you, John. Debbie Kurtz, you're up.
I think shared services are a good idea, too. It doesn't hurt to be friendly and help one another. I don't know a lot about, or really anything at this point about the shared services in the village of Jackson, so I unfortunately can't make a lot of comments about a lot of things because I've been out of the loop. But I think shared services is a good thing to do.
Thanks, Debbie. Tim?
The whole question again?
Absolutely. Tax levy limits have restricted the avenues that villages and municipalities have in terms of funding. What are your thoughts on shared services and equipment with neighboring communities?
All right, well, Jackson already does this, as was previously mentioned. The Jackson Fire Department does do services for other communities. Thank you. And they get paid for that, and that helps us afford new fire engine equipment and whatever. And the staffing that we need, as was alluded to earlier, we need to make sure we keep that place staffed very well. Another area where we are sharing services with, or tried to share services with, is in our inspection services. We tried to put together a deal with City of Hartford to have a part-time, basically we get a part-time guy, they get a part-time guy, it's one guy in between. We'd be the one carrying the burden and billing them for it. I don't know we actually got that resolved at this point if we got the full-time person there. I think we're still possibly renting services from outside. There was another candidate that came up, if I'm not mistaken. But we are doing those kinds of things because if you don't need 2 people in a department, you need 1.5. That's the only way you can keep your costs down. As far as the counties are already sharing planning services with us in the village, and they're also suggesting that they might be able to help us out with some of the computer services as well. So there's different things that are going on within the county that I don't know if they're a result of Mid-Marine or how it's coming about, but there's different areas that we are sharing and trying to keep taxes down. The good thing, and as mentioned earlier, the retiring public service director did share things like a heavy-duty vacuum truck with other communities and the like to keep the cost for them down. Obviously, then you get the payback on the other end when you need something. So I think we're definitely encouraged to do that, and we have been doing it. So it's something to expand on, basically.
Mr. Engelhardt, thank you. Mr. Mitchell?
Being on the Board of Public Works, that we get to see it. I mean, Tim and I and Randy, we get to see a lot of what, I'm brain farting on his name. Brian. I don't know how I forgot that. We get to see him kind of tell us that he's been doing that or he's sharing with this. Sometimes it becomes a little bit difficult because they need the equipment probably at the same time we do. So then does it cost, is there a cost benefit to it? Because if they're taking a bunch of trees down for the same weather that we had, we're going to have trees that are going to be down and we're going to need the equipment. Or so you're kind of fighting back and forth. Shared services, I'm trying to figure out how to put this. Where I work, we have student workers because we can't afford a full-time person. So shared services, shared equipment, it all kind of makes sense. It's not, sometimes it's not the greatest candidate or the greatest person. It doesn't have all the skills, but finding the right person and finding the training and all of that. So like Tim said, if you need 2 people, or if you only need 1.5, you can't afford 2, well, you can chess piece it together. I think it makes sense.
Thank you very much. Mr. Schlens, you'll begin the next question, and this one has actually been touched on a little bit by, pardon? Oh, I'm sorry, Brian.
You don't get to talk.
Go for it, Brian.
Who's that? I know, he sucked the air out of the room already.
Actually, you'll like the next question too, Brian, okay?
Oh, great, thanks. So what was it again?
What are your thoughts on shared services or equipment with neighboring communities?
It is a good idea for some things, and some things we should keep our own. I know right now we have a countywide dispatch that's been in place for years. We never had our own dispatch center here, which saves us money. I know our fire department does do MABUS calls, so if we have a big structure fire here, other departments will send their members here to help us with fires here within our zone that we cover, our area that we cover, and free of charge. Our police department has a member of the police department on our drug unit for the county, And if we have a drug case here in the village, the drug unit will come here and assist our department here in Jackson, and they will take care, and sometimes they'll take over the case if it's a big thing where we don't have time for our officers to handle, because we've been running short as well over there. I know our DPW here has shared equipment in the past with the town of Jackson and the city of Cedarburg and possibly the village of Grafton. For the action in Jackson, when I was still working, I know we talked about, the chief here did, police chief did, about trying to secure your area over there better because of all the things that are going on now to keep the grounds safer. We were talking about bringing over some Jersey barriers from Cedarburg, and I was going to help out with that. It'd be another shared service to get them trucked over here so they could be utilized at the park over there. In some ways, it is a very good thing, but in some other areas, we want to keep our own staff for certain things that we don't have the time limits for, stuff like that. But overall, it is a good preface to use that when you can.
Brian, thank you. John, you'll have first shot at this next question, and a couple of the candidates have touched on this, but this question asks you to be more specific than maybe you've had a chance to be, and it wraps around, how would you both encourage retention and attraction of candidates to positions within the village? So this relates to village employees' retention and attraction. I've spoken about this to Mid-Moraine in the past, and municipalities used to have attraction to a very different labor pool than they do now. Now they're competing with the private sector for a number of types of positions. So it's a different labor market that municipalities face. John?
The easy part of that question is retention, and that would be having a pay scale that's correct, a benefit scale that's correct, and a good atmosphere at the job. The two people that I just saw retire the other night had careers of something like 24 and 28 years. That means Jackson's doing something right, to keep them that long. Attraction. Again, the pay scale will attract people. At one of the elections, I was talking to a police officer, and I didn't know how big the police force was for Jackson. So I just asked him, how big are you guys? And he told me, and I forgot now, but he said, we're looking to hire another person, and the chief is touting, first of all, the brand new building that we just built. It's like a Taj Mahal, and it's a very nice, attractive place to come into and work. And then, we both commented on the fact that another attraction for a police officer is the fact that the citizens of Jackson actually appreciate what they do. That's a big one. And so the chief is touting those in attracting the new hire that he's looking for. So that's about it on that.
John, thank you much. Debbie, you're up next on this question.
Well, I'm into simple tonight, obviously. So to me, proper pay scale and benefits is a good way to keep people. And make it that they want to work for you, treat them with respect and kindness, and treat them the way you want to be treated. A lot of employers are not treating people like that. So proper pay scale and benefits, I think, is one of the big ones.
Debbie, thank you. Mr. Engelhardt.
Well, the obvious thing is benefits and the pay being correct for the job that's being done. But I think you have to look for some younger people that can come in at entry level in different positions and work their way up within the organization, whether it's the water department, the street department, whatever it would be. And then also make sure you've got good leaders in all those positions that do show that people respect, but yet control what's getting done properly. Like anything else, all of us like to work at a place that's happy. None of us like to go to a place that you just don't want to get up in the morning to go to. So just make it a good work environment and show up a plan for the future, especially for your younger workers that are coming into a job, that there's a career here if you do your job well, and you can progress all the way through as far as your experience, but also as far as your monetary rewards. That's all I got.
Well, Tim, at age 75, you must like what you do. Okay. Jeff, you're next.
How much time do we have for this?
You have 1 minute for
Okay,
this.
that's easy.
Or, excuse me, 2
Oh, it's a
minutes.
2 minute.
It's a 2 minute.
I don't need 2 minutes. Yeah, okay.
It's up to 2
Oh,
minutes.
okay, all right. So sometimes pay scale and benefits aren't always the deciding factor. I'll give you for example. I work where I work, and I get to see, I know I don't want to mix religion in here, but I get to see young pastors or young students that are coming and studying to be pastors. So when they come in, they are green, and some of them can't preach to save their lives, which is good. I mean, because that's where they're going to school. But you get to see that grow, so you get to see them through 3 years, you get to see them expand on all of their studies and how to put a sermon together and preach and all of that stuff. And so sometimes it's more about the mission of what the village is, or in my case, what the seminary does. So sometimes it just, you get, for me, if it was about the pay, I wouldn't be where I'm at. But I get to see I get to see these guys grow, and I get to see them expand their lives, which then gets to expand my life, which then, it just gets shared exponentially. I mean, I suppose that can happen in the police department and the fire department, but I mean, again, it's, the mission is saving or, protecting. So I think that's about where I got.
Jeff, thank you very much. Brian, I told you you'd like this question.
Sorry. Thanks. Yeah, I've been speaking about this since the last couple of years since I've been on the board. I think any of the employees will tell you that, that I've been pushing for this because I'm worried about our staff and being able to attract people and keep people. Our our fire chief told me that right now we have 3 openings for part-time paramedics. And those people are hourly at $22.85. Now, you can go across the street to the gas station, I think, over by John Krupke, and probably make that at his gas station. And these people are supposed to be saving our lives and administering drugs to us. We're having heart attacks and stuff like that. That has to be worked on and get the pay up so we do attract people and that want to come to Jackson and want to stay here, other than, the state retirement package, the insurance that we offer and things of that nature. That's a big part of it. You're paying your benefits. And I brought up even at the village board meeting the other night about even for the employees' birthdays, giving them a birthday card signed by the village board and like a $20 gift card to go to a local business here for lunch, just to say, hey, we appreciate you working for us and being here in the village. You have to go out of your way to make the employees, understand that they are valued in the things that they do for us. A lot of these people put their lives on the line for us, and they're working hours that we don't want to work. And I work those hours, and believe me, you don't want to work a lot of those hours. I am very concerned about our being able to fill these positions, and we've offered more money to several candidates for the Department of Public Works, and the people it did nothing to get them in here. So there's a lot of things that need to be done to keep and attract people to the village.
Brian, thank you very much. Randy, you get the last say on this question.
Obviously, paying benefits, that's why people work, otherwise they'd be sitting at home on their couch watching TV, right? So paying benefits is the biggest thing for most people to work. That's what they go to work for. So it's our important job to make sure that they are being paid at or above the market. And I appreciate our administrator who does a lot of surveys of area municipalities to determine how they are structuring their pay. What does it look like for them versus us? And it's not necessarily that we have to be 20% over the market. We just have to make sure that we are at least not below the market so that we can attract the kind of candidates that we're looking for. Considering something like graded positions, for example, being able to give expectations to people who understand what is my opportunity here at this municipality? And along with that, promotion opportunities. What are my opportunities for growing in my job? It's not just the pay and benefits always. Sometimes people are just plain old happy, understanding that I can go from taking on more responsibility and growing and working with other people and having people work with me or for me as an opportunity for growth. Along with that comes an opportunity for certifications, and we have a lot of those things that happen in the village of people going and getting their certifications. We encourage that, and I think that support comes from the board, it comes from the directors, it comes from everybody. And one of the things that I would also say is that I hear regularly from our police and fire chief that they really feel very supported in our community, and that's the main thing I think that we have to make sure as a community that we can promote those kinds of things in the community so that they feel welcome here, that they feel supported, and that not only the fire and police but also the entire staff right on down the line for the administration.
Randy, thank you very much. Debbie, you'll be the first on the next question. And this question specifically has to do with an area business. With Glacier Hills Credit Union now open in the Village Square development, what else would you like to see built in that area?
I seriously haven't given that much thought, but I am definitely happy Glacier Hills is here. I've been doing business with them in West Bend for quite a few years. So it's going to be nice to be able to walk there instead of drive there. I don't know, some type of small buildings, small businesses. Anything from like gift shops to, I don't know, just some types of small businesses would be nice to be in there.
Tim, you're up to bat.
You didn't take long enough for me to get ready.
This is a
Okay.
1-minute question.
Okay. Okay, what we would like to see developed in that area is maybe some entertainment, restaurants, places that will draw people into the community, not just from the village of Jackson, but from Grafton or West Bend or whatever. So to do that, if you could get some sort of a established name as far as a restaurant, for example, that was put in that area, you would have people coming in for. If you put just Texas Roadhouse ended up there, for example, people would come from Grafton and go there maybe rather than West Bend. But that type of a situation where we want things that will draw people to the area, not just be something that only takes care of people in Jackson, because that brings money into Jackson as well as being a service to the people in Jackson.
Jeff, you're next.
I don't really know that I've given that much thought either. I mean, I don't know that it can, I guess it can be another restaurant, but, there's a lot of things that it could be, but it has to be the right fit. It has to be, for example, Jimmy's is open from 7 to 3, Wednesday to Sunday, right? Oh, Friday, okay, fish fry. But, if you open that place in that area, is it going to take away from something else? So, it's a gamble. It's, I'm not saying it shouldn't happen. I'm definitely not saying it shouldn't happen. But it's got to be strategic. It's got to be the right thing to come in that can generate the interest without taking away from the other restaurants, which we have 10.
Jeff, thank you very much. Brian.
The village board has been working with the Economic Development of Washington County group on that property. There were some surveys done and some looking at that property, and I believe there could be 2 or 3 lots yet over there. One could be combined to a big lot, and then there'd be a separate one next to the credit union. There was talk of a brew house and a restaurant out there with some outdoor seating, which a lot of people in the village wanted another restaurant. That was a big thing over the years I've been on a board that people have asked for, more restaurants. That'd be nice to have a place to sit outside. There, a pet supply store was also brought up that would fit over there, like a Pet Supplies Plus or something about that nature. a possible walk-in clinic, because we don't have any anymore in Jackson, that people could go to, instead of driving to West Bend or Germantown or Grafton area, for a walk-in clinic. And Aurora closed across the street on 60 some time back. So those are things that have come up that people have asked for and in surveys and that with EDWC.
Thank you, Brian. Randy, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, as Brian mentioned, we've been working with EDWC to develop the concepts that we can develop, that we can promote in there. I think one of the things that is high priority for the board, and as we've talked about a lot, is food and entertainment venue. There are people in the village who feel like we need more of that. Brian mentioned about pet services. That is something that EDWC feels that there is a real opportunity in this area. They've done studies of what is in Cedarburg, what is in West Bend, what is in Germantown, what is in Hartford and Slinger, and what gaps can we fill as an organization and as a business in the area. I think that the space there has a lot of traffic visibility. That's one of the things that we are capturing. And Glacier Hill's got some primary land right there. They stepped right up and they stepped right in, and they got prime spot in, right on Highway 60. So I appreciate their support. And boutique services is another thing that the executive, people have talked about. So that's another area that we would like to see developed.
Randy, thank you. Mr. Schlenz, you are the one to wrap up this question.
Okay. I saw a presentation on this a few meetings ago, and they were talking about somewhat of a brewery, maybe a high-end brewery and a restaurant. I like that idea because it would make it kind of like a destination in the area. I'd love to see a Texas Roadhouse. That's my favorite restaurant. But and my wife will probably cringe because we'd be there every night. But
somebody missed dinner tonight.
So I like the idea of making it an attractive area, a destination. A walk-in clinic would be great. A home for retired podiatrists. I don't know. But any of those would work there.
John, thank you very much. Much appreciated. The next question will begin with Tim. And this question is more one regarding each of your visions for what Jackson will be down the road. So if you were elected to office 5 years from now or 10 years from now, so we're asking a little bit further out in the future here, how would you like to see people describe the village of Jackson? People who aren't from here, but if you asked them about Jackson, what would they say? What would you like that to be? And I'll give you each a moment to think about that. That is a 2-minute question, up to 2 minutes response.
I'd like them to view Jackson just like they do right now. It's a nice place to live. One of the things my wife and I noticed when we moved to the town, which is out in Twin Creeks, now it's part of the village, but one of the things we noticed right away, and we came from Germantown, which wasn't a bad place, but this is a friend of their place. Wherever you go, people are nice to you. And that's the vision you want for Jackson. You want it to feel like home because it is home, and have all the services that you would like to have. Of course, we've got the grocery store, we got a number of restaurants in town, but we don't have every venue like a Texas Roadhouse.
Are you like, they're not here?
You don't know that.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Okay. Anyway, what you want the village to be is a place that people want to move to. Okay, and as far as affordable housing, certainly, but you want it to be a place that people go to at any age because it's a comfortable place to live. People appreciate the people around them. You've got a number of, not to bring religion in, but you have a number of churches in this area, which probably has a lot to do with being a nice place to live. So it's just what my vision is, that we'll have more industrial area that'll help lower the taxes. We'll have a broad range of housing available for everybody, and that will have a place that people want to come to, whether it's to go to the restaurant we hope to have there, or entertainment we hope to have there, or to just enjoy the parks, everything we have to offer. The splash pad over here, when I was in the town, that was a favorite place for my grandchildren to go to, for example. There's just a lot of things Jackson has to offer that make it a good place to go, and that's the future I want to see.
Tim, thank you very much. And candidates, this will be the last question before we move on to closing comments. So if you want to mentally start thinking about your closing comments as well. Jeff, you're up to bat on this question.
Can you repeat the question?
I sure can. So 5 to 10 years from now, let's say you were elected to as a village trustee. 5 to 10 years from now, if you ask somebody from outside the area what Jackson was like, what would you hope that they would say? What would be your vision of what you would want the people's impression of Jackson to be?
I would want them to have a sense of community, which I think we have. I agree with Tim. We lived in Menominee Falls for 12 years. We bought our first house there, but it was big. And I think I talked to outside my, the neighbor to my east and my neighbor to my west. I don't think I talked to anybody in my neighborhood right up until the sign went up. And I think that's when everybody was like, why are you leaving? Well, but, and then we moved in December, on December 2nd of 2017, and it was 60 degrees. And you'd have thought I was selling popcorn or tacos or something because everybody in the neighborhood came. So I thought it was actually very cool. It was very welcoming. Everybody kind of like, who are you, where are you coming from kind of thing. So I think it worked out very well. So I think the sense of community and just a place that you can, it's not the lakefront property that you want to retire at, but it's also that small town feel that you're like, I can, I don't have to sell my house and move to a smaller house, or I don't have to sell my house and go somewhere else or get a condo. No offense to anybody that lives in a condo. But you can retire here and not worry about not feeling out of place.
Jeff, thank you very much. Brian, you are up next.
So you're looking at what our vision,
If you were to ask someone 5 to 10 years from now from outside of the area, what would you hope their vision of Jackson would be, their impression of what Jackson is?
that there's something here for everyone, that it's a welcoming community, it's a safe community, that there's friendly people here, and there's something that everybody can do here. I moved here from Racine, and that was actually I moved from Racine to Cedarburg, and that was a big change, and then Cedarburg to Jackson was even a different change. And when I built my house here back in 2000, I had sod delivered, and the next morning I had 15 neighbors. I didn't even know these people were. I just moved in. They're knocking at my door, and they're coming out there with sod cutters and everything else, and they're already putting my sod out for me. A couple of cases of beer out there ready at 7 in the morning, and I didn't know any of these people. That's the kind of community Jackson is now, and I hope later on down the future people see the same thing, that the people here mean well and they take care of each other. You got local businesses that look out for each other too, for citizens. I changed my own oil, and years ago, a long time ago, I broke off my oil filter in my car in my garage, and I had to go to work. So I don't remember if I called Casey's. I called somebody here, and they came over to my house and took the oil filter off my car for me because it was broken. It was a mess. And that's the kind of community that we have. And I hope that people who come here and look at this down the road see the same thing that I've experienced by living here in Jackson. I hope they see that it's safe, feel it's safe, they can raise a family here, and it's welcoming. I think later on down the road, we are going to have some more industrial stuff, which will help also with the tax base, as well as Tim said. But I hope that they see, too, we have good services here for everybody, and there is options for people to do here. Thank you.
Brian, thank you very much. Randy, your thoughts?
I think people would like to understand that we can grow as a village without extremity things going way off the beaten path. We can be a welcoming community for people to come in and be a part of our community, and not to say, we don't want people to come out here anymore because we don't want to lose that small town attitude, feeling. If somebody had said that to you, you wouldn't be here, right? You wouldn't feel very comfortable coming here. I think another thing is manageable taxes, being affordable and being able to live in a community that we have while still being able to provide the kinds of services that we want to provide. Things like, for example, we just started up the canine unit again, a very popular thing in the village. The dog park, we love our dogs, right? I mean, that's what the people are telling us. That's what the developers are telling us. We love our dogs. So we work on being responsive and great fire and police people. We support those people. Good roads is also a thing. It always comes up number one. How come that road is so terrible? How come I got to climb around and clamber around on the road? So that's another area that we have to be responsible for, making sure that people are understanding that 5 to 10 year down the road. Also a good mix of housing. I think it leads to a good mix of residents when you have a lot of single family, you have apartments, you have condos, you have a mix of generations of ethnicities, you have all different kinds of people, makes for a very good, solid community that people can rely on each other. And then lastly, the businesses that support the community and serve the community, that they see themselves as being good members of the community and supporting the community and the efforts that go on and putting their resources into the community as well.
Thank you, Randy. John, what would you hope that the image of Jackson would be if you asked someone from outside the area 5 to 10 years from now?
Well, I've felt it. I lived in Germantown for about 40 years. We raised our son there. It was nice, good schools, but it was just a place to live. Then my first wife passed away, and I married somebody I knew since high school, and moved out here, and I could feel the difference. It's very safe out here. It's very welcoming. I would never have thought of getting involved at Germantown. It was just, it was just a place, but this does feel like home. So that's why I would want people to feel, safe, welcomed, and good, friendly people around them.
John, thank you very much. Debbie, wrap up this question, and then we will be doing the closing comments in the same order as the opening comments, so you'll also do your closing comments right after this question.
I would want people to always feel like I have since I've lived here for almost 26 years, and to always feel welcomed. And we don't have to always agree on everything, but we need to be kind and respectful and good to one another. So I would hope that people later in the future would want to come and visit and want to stay and want and be proud of the community that we have.
Closing comments are up to 2 minutes, just like the opening comments. And Debbie, you are up.
Well, like I've been short tonight, this will be short and sweet. I just want to thank the Greater Business Alliance and Mid-Moraine Municipal Association for the opportunity to be part of this forum and to listen and engage today. I really feel that together we can build a future that reflects our shared values. So I humbly ask for your support and most certainly welcome the opportunity to serve you. Thank you.
Tim.
Well, I'll use this as a commercial for myself. Basically, I think I'm a good candidate because of my past experience. The fact that I'm on the board right now, the last 4 years, I know from when I started on the board to where I am right now, it actually takes at least a year to year and a half just to get accustomed to how it works. Okay, and so you don't speak out of turn, for example, which I get slapped for from time to time. But just, I know the way the system works right now. I know that we do have good employees in the village, and they are appreciated, frankly. We have lost a couple of good ones to retirement, or we are losing a couple of good ones to retirement, but overall, the people we have are very good at what they do, and they actually care about the village. I think I'm familiar with that. I'm familiar with how the board works. My past experience yields itself well to leadership and to management, and I'm certainly old enough to do the job, so there's no problem that way.
Tim, thank you very much. Jeff. your closing comments.
I'm pretty sure I'm the youngest on the, but that. Yeah, I'm the youngest. I know that much. I just want to thank the sponsors. Thank you for the opportunity. I have probably learned more in this process, not only about myself, but about what is expected. Well, not necessarily expected, but kind of what is expected and what each role changes or each role is and how it changes. I'm learning a great amount about all of the village processes, at least from the Public Works Department, but I do hope that I'm not done. I won't be done. I'll still be on the Public Works, but I just want to thank for the opportunity.
Jeff, thank you very much. Brian?
I'd like to thank everybody who put the event on tonight. I'm proud to serve the village. I've been serving my entire adult life, sheriff, deputy, police officer, police sergeant, canine handler. My whole life I've been serving people, and I feel this is a sense of pride and honor to be doing this again someplace I lived the last coming on 25 years. People know me. They kind of know where I stand. A lot of people we don't agree all the time. Same with the board, but we get things done. I was told by not just my wife, but the village administrator that I give out too much information. I talk too much. But that's kind of why I ran initially, was to let people know what's going on, so I get things out. Sometimes I get spanked a little bit and get in trouble, but I want people to know what's going on in the village and kind of where I stand. So I'm asking for your vote and to continue what I've been doing. And I just want to keep our village staff with the right people, and I want to keep this village growing in a positive direction. And I still want to keep Jackson. It's always the joke, the one-horse town that everyone wants it to be, but we still have to have some type of growth to assist with our tax levy, and so people still can afford to live here. So I appreciate your vote, and thanks everybody for putting this on, and thanks for your time for coming tonight.
Brian, thank you for your closing comments. Randy, you're next.
Also, thank you to the Greater Jackson Business Alliance and to Scott and to Dan for putting this on tonight. Appreciate the extra efforts that you're putting in. I also am going to use this as a little bit of a commercial for myself as well. I think also I am proud to serve the Village of Jackson. It's my civic duty and it's my responsibility as a village member. Not everybody has the same civic responsibility. Some people pick up trash. Some people work to make the streets a little safer. Some people do other things. They work at a food kitchen, whatever. So things that you can do that I can do as well, and this is one of the areas where I feel I can contribute. I think what you have to do is look back, and I look back for the last 4 years since I've been on the board at least, and look at what we have accomplished, and I'm just blown away by what we have accomplished as a board, what the village has accomplished. You look at things like the roundabout, or the Cisco expansion, the Highway 60, the pickleball courts. You look at the new housing developments and the wastewater treatment plant, which hasn't been addressed for probably over 20 years. And we're putting all of those things all addressed within the last 4 years and all of the things that happened before that. We are reducing the tax levy, and again, I understand that a lot of that has to do with the assessments going up, but when you look at the mill rate in our little corner of the world, the mill rate in 21 was over 8 in 21, was over 8 per $1,000 worth of assessed value. Now it is down to about 5, a little over 5 per $1,000 of assessed value. Granted, we had reassessments and things like that, but you don't get that kind of support from just spending willy-nilly. And then responsible spending. I think we have a responsibility as a board to consider what's being spent. I know that there was talk about, how much we're spending, and that is amazing to me too sometimes, to approve $3 million worth of payments. But those are the projects that are going on in the village, and you have to see them going on in order to be able to understand what the costs are and how they're being paid for.
Randy, thank you. Mr. Slens.
Again, thank you for everyone putting this on.
You truly get the last word, by the way.
Oh, good, good. And for all you guys for attending here. I'm the newbie looking in here, and when I first started getting interested in this and going to meetings to see if this is something that would be interesting or I could do, I became impressed by the government's governance that Jackson has here. I don't think you can go wrong with any of these guys up here. So that's the good news. You know, there's no duds. I'm impressed with how this town or this village is run. The town is somewhere else, you know. And thanks again for having this tonight.
Well, I'd also like to thank the Mid-Moraine Municipal Association and the Greater Jackson Business Alliance. These candidate forums allow you here in person and those who watch or listen to it online to truly become the most informed voters in the village of Jackson. I say this with any moderation that I do, and it is very, very true. It's also one of the coolest forms of pure democracy we have, and that is the questions didn't come from me. They didn't come from Scott. They came from people who live in and work and play in this village and who submitted the questions. So I thank you very much for it. So if we could have a round of applause for our candidates. It's a lot of work what they do. And thank you very much, everyone. Have a great night and drive safe.